Exposed, my hidden pregnancy took an incredible turn when the Mafia boss appeared during delivery. Emma's heart raced as the fluorescent lights flickered above her in the hospital. She winced against the biting chill of the air, but it wasn't the cold that made her shiver. It was the reality crashing against her. She was about to bring a new life into a world defined by the shadows of her past. 2 weeks from graduation, every final paper felt heavier. Every dollar she hustled at the diner more urgent. Suddenly, she was a single mother, a student, and, without anyone knowing, a pregnant woman in the face of impending doom. She had told no one. Her grandmother's words echoed hauntingly. Family is everything. Yet that family had no idea of the burden she carried. As she clenched her teeth through another contraction, the juxtaposition of hope and dread twisted in her gut. Was she strong enough to fight off the past that threatened to rear its ugly head? The child kicking inside her reminded her of the future she'd envisioned, free from the chains of crime and fear that had so deeply entangled her family since her great-grandfather's era. But could she protect her baby from what she knew? An image of the Mafia boss blurred in her mind, dominant, menacing, a part of a legacy she wanted to escape. Would he leave her alone, or would he stride into her life to claim a stake in the future she fought for? The sensation tightened around her, an anxious anticipation, a hollow dread that pulsed with every labor pain. She glanced at the empty chair beside her bed, the space meant for support, filled with the ghosts of her choices. In a town where sins came with bloodlines, every face she looked into reflected a potential threat. For years she had managed to keep her head down, working tirelessly at 2 jobs and cradling her dream of becoming a social worker, someone who champions others instead of becoming a victim of her family's past. But her past had grown restless. It had her cornered, trembling, and exposed. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor became a haunting reminder of time slipping by. Her resolve wavered as she wrestled with fear, of the baby, of herself, of the man she desperately hoped would stay away. Just as her labor intensified, the door swung open with a heavy creak. The air shifted, charged with a familiar, dangerous energy. He was there, the town's Mafia boss, dressed impeccably in tailored suits. He cornered her space effortlessly, a dynamic so twisted that she felt herself losing her grip on reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference.
Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma, he drawled, eyes narrowing as he stepped closer. I'm here for you. I know you've worked hard to keep your life together, but you shouldn't face this alone. His voice was no longer a sinister whisper from the dark, but rather a cycling memory, stirring both anger and discomfort. Did he want to help her, or was there a price looming just outside her line of sight? Every instinct warned her to flee, yet the crazy paradox of his presence ignited something unsettling within her. The contractions grew, each wave taking her deeper into turmoil. The stakes climbed higher with every word exchanged, and her thoughts spiraled in conflicting directions. Trust versus survival, power versus autonomy, a past that promised safety if she surrendered her will. Even as the nurses bustled around her, oblivious to the turmoil creeping into her moment of vulnerability, Emma sensed the stakes higher than ever. Clenching her fists, she readied for the labor pains ahead, knowing the real battle would soon ignite. Would she bend to his allure, or stake a claim to a world without him? Emma had but one chance to determine her family's fate, her own, and only chaos awaited with each passing second. The air felt stifling as the contractions intensified, a mounting tempest within her that mirrored the storm brewing outside the sterile hospital walls. Emma's gaze shot to the Mafia boss, a predator in a tailored suit, his presence an unsettling reminder of the past she fought so fiercely to escape. "Stay away," Emma managed to hiss through gritted teeth, fear mingling with defiance. This wasn't a game. Her very survival, and that of her child, hung in the balance. The moment felt surreal, as if the world had paused just for them. Each pained breath pulled her deeper into a chasm where hope wrestled with fear. "Emma," he pleaded, voice deceptively calm, as though he held all the answers. "You don't understand what you're up against. This is a time for strength." The arrogance dripped from his words like poison, but was there a hint of sincerity mixed in? As the contractions tore through her, narrowing her focus, she wrestled with his intentions. Did he genuinely want to help, or was this a play to keep her bound to a legacy she was desperate to break away from? Her mind raced, analyzing every aspect of his speech. Strength. It was a word laden with various meanings, often twisted into a guise for control. What he considered protection could very well trap her in chains far worse than her past. Emma remembered the promises she made to herself during long nights at the diner, visions of freedom painted in vivid strokes. A child was her opportunity to ensure that legacy of crime and manipulation stopped with her, if only she could seize it. With every contraction, she questioned her resolve.
How could she form a future filled with light in the presence of a man whose world was defined by darkness? The thought of crumpling under pressure felt instinctively wrong. No, she wouldn't let him see her sweat. It was time to shift her perception from victim to warrior. Confrontation wouldn't come from submission, but from standing firm against threats. "Leave," she managed to affirm, her voice gaining strength as the surge of another contraction hit. Yet instead of retreating, he took a step closer, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. There it was, his determination to wrest control, to somehow coax her back into a twisted family bond. "What's the plan here, Emma?" he asked, his tone mocking yet charged with urgency. "You think you can do this alone?" The two worlds, her aspiration to become a social worker, to save others, clashed against the reality of her predicament, putting her values to the test. Did she even know how to do it alone? "This is my child," she declared, her voice cracking with emotion yet grounded with power. "I won't allow your shadows to darken the door before they even enter this world." A moment of silence hung thick like fog. The Mafia boss seemed momentarily taken aback, hesitating as if her words challenged his authority. Maybe there was more to her than just a girl trying to survive. Perhaps this was a reckoning forming around her, a bit of light emerging amidst the encroaching dark. As the rhythmic beeping of the monitor intensified, signaling her urge to push, another realization struck her with a jolt: clarity in chaos. The contractions may be a physical trial, but they were equally a metaphorical push toward the future she desired. In that moment, she understood that her deliverance lay not just in being guarded, but in confronting the very adversary that embodied her fears. "Emma," he said again, but this time his voice lost some of its confidence. "Watch me," she retorted, her voice stronger, filled with a fierce resolve as the next contraction gripped her core. There was no retreat, no path to isolation. As the battle intensified within her, the real confrontation was only beginning. With a sharp inhale, she braced herself, eyes narrowing as she prepared to confront her past, not just the man towering over her, but all the history that had shaped her thus far. The moment of truth was approaching, and this time she would face it head on. As pain coursed through her, she realized perhaps it was time to show the world what she was made of. Just as she prepared to push, the door swung open once more. Emma's heart quickened. Who was it now? Would it be support, or another skirmish against her encroaching fate? The door swung open, and a flurry of doctors entered, faces focused but sterile, as if they were out of a medical drama. Their presence cloaked the room in brisk efficiency, a welcome shift from the tension that had pervaded Emma's thoughts just moments earlier. But when she glanced back at the Mafia boss, there was still defiance in her eyes, her heart still thrumming with anticipation. As the medical team moved in and began to prep her, she felt the air shift once again, and the weight of the impending delivery pressed on her more heavily than the man watching from a distance. One of the nurses, a woman with a steely yet calm demeanor, planted herself at Emma's side. "You're strong, Emma. You can do this. Just focus on your breathing," she advised, her voice steady as she checked the monitor. Emma nodded, desperately clinging to her words, while still aware of the storm brewing around her, the man who represented her past lingering like a dark cloud in the corner of her vision. As another contraction hit, Emma gritted her teeth and met the eyes of the Mafia boss. His expression had morphed into something resembling concern, or was it a strategy? Fear mingled with resolve within her, compelling her to dig deeper into her primal instincts. In this moment, I am not just fighting against my past, she thought. I am fighting for my future. The determination coursing through her veins was electric, igniting hope and ambition she had long nurtured in solitude. With each contraction, Emma felt overwhelmed by powerful waves of pain, but the fears that gripped her mind were both burdensome and liberating. What would I tell a client in crisis, she pondered, recalling her dreams of being a social worker. Stand firm in your truth. Never accept what you don't believe aligns with your core values. Those thoughts became her anchor, a lifesaver in an unrelenting sea. As the room erupted into a flurry of organized chaos, Emma shifted in her mind from a mere participant to an active contender in this battle for herself and her child. This is my moment. I will not let him or anyone else dictate my fate. The true battle would begin once her child arrived, but it was essential to prove her mettle first. "Push, Emma," the doctor commanded, and with that she unleashed a primal scream mixed with rage, determination, and indescribable pain. She could almost visualize the chains of the past breaking apart, and with her next push, she demanded liberation. But when the pain subsided momentarily, she felt eyes on her. Glancing sideways, she saw the Mafia boss still standing there, observing her every move. The swath of his suit contrasted sharply against the bright whites and pastels of the hospital room, reminding her of the gravity of her choices. "Please, Emma," he said, desperation creeping back into his voice. "You don't have to go through this alone." For a fleeting moment, she questioned her growing resolve. What if she embraced his offer? What if strength could be found in unity rather than isolation? But the short-lived thought rapidly evaporated as the next wave of contraction hit. "I don't need you," she assured herself, and with one more push, she declared her truth to the room. "I am enough."
In the next breath, she felt a shift, not just the birth of her child beginning to emerge, but a transformation within herself. It was more than a moment of clarity. It was a birth of self-awareness, realization coursing through her veins. The past would not define her, more would it define the life she was bringing forth. As she finally leaned back, arm draped across her forehead, panting for breath, the doctor offered his encouragement. "Almost there, Emma. One final effort." Summoning her last reserves, she glanced defiantly at the Mafia boss, knowing that her strength would forever counter his attempts to sway her. In that moment, she understood she was the architect of her life, and this child would witness a new legacy born from grit, the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. Just as the doctor's voice rang clear, promising the imminent arrival of her child, the door burst open yet again. Who would it be this time, and what new challenge awaited her in this pivotal moment? The atmosphere shifted instantly as a nurse stepped briskly into the room, carrying a clipboard brimming with responsibilities. Behind her, shadows flickered through the doorway, rallying attention away from the impending event. As Emma turned her head, bracing against the pain, she saw not just the medical team, but a familiar face among them, Paul, her old friend from the social work program. His eyes widened in surprise, but he masked that under a professional facade. "Emma, I'm here to assist. Just keep focusing on your breathing," he said, stepping toward the array of hospital equipment. It was a shock of familiarity amidst the chaos that ignited an old flame of confidence in her. In that fleeting moment, memories of their long nights spent discussing client cases and dreams of advocacy flickered through her mind. "You always said social work is about connection," she recalled. As painful as each contraction was, the presence of Paul reframed her circumstances. If there was a potential ally in her corner, perhaps this would not be a solitary battle after all. "Emma, we need to prep you for the next push. I can help guide you," Paul urged, his voice steady and firm. In that one phrase, she felt herself recover some control. He had always known how to empower her, and she would harness that support now. As the next wave of contractions hit, Emma mirrored the intensity of the environment, amplifying her focus. She could feel the nourishment from hope swell within her, turning each surge of pain into a catalyst, igniting her resolve like a flame engulfing dry leaves. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a warrior reclaiming her narrative. Paul stood at her side, offering continual encouragement while the medical team busied themselves around her. "You've got this, Emma. This is about you and your child now. There's no looking back." Surprisingly, his words forged a deeper connection to her own internal mantra.
"This child will not inherit the chains of my past," she thought fiercely, pushing against the mesh of anxiety and anticipation. The Mafia boss's presence still loomed, his intentions unclear and overshadowing her past choices.
But here, in this moment, she realized his influence would not stretch into this new chapter. The contractions surged and ebbed like the tide, but Emma remained resolute. "I am worthy of happiness and strength. My child deserves better," she affirmed silently, pushing away any remnants of doubt. As Paul supported her physically and emotionally, she found herself reclaiming the agency she thought lost forever. "Are you ready for one last push?" the doctor asked, bringing her back to attention, and for the first time a smile broke across her exhausted face. "Let's do this," she shouted, summoning every last ounce of will. With that, she pushed with ferocious intent, cradling that intense energy she had cultivated through her struggle. But amid all this, she noticed the Mafia boss shifting uneasily, frowning at the evolving dynamic, and for the first time, his gaze seemed less like a man in control and more like someone desperate. "Why are you so threatened?" she thought, pushing harder. "You don't get to decide how this story ends." The final moment of urgency and effort intertwined with the realization that no one could dictate Emma's fate, neither her past nor those who lingered from it. As the pressure peaked, Emma felt the juxtaposition of vulnerability and power give way to an ecstatic realization: she had survived. In the deafening silence that followed the moment of truth, a shrill cry erupted in the room, filling the air with the melody of new life. Emma wept. No more chains, no more shadows, only a path forward. But her tears were met with the unmistakable sound of the Mafia boss's voice cracking through the intensity. "Emma, wait," he called out, his urgency exposing the last vestiges of a personal war she hadn't anticipated. Dread settled in as she gazed at her child, her emblem of strength, and faced the complex realities of resolutions yet to be made. Who else would linger in her life's tale, and why did they want to say in this new chapter? Emma inhaled deeply, knowing that challenges were never far behind, especially with the past she fought so hard to escape, now resurfacing again. Emma's heart raced as the Mafia boss's voice cut through the sanctity of her moment. The bleeding cry of her newborn juxtaposed a tangled web of emotions swirling inside her. She felt a primal urge to shield her child from the shadows of her past, a fierce love ignited by the act of giving life. But his presence threatened the fragile peace she had just begun to forge. "Don't you dare come near," she whispered under her breath, her instincts kicking in. She wanted to rise to the challenge, to face him head-on as she had with her labor.
But the disbelief and confusion swirling around her left her hemmed in, more vulnerable than ever. Paul, sensing her tension, shifted closer. "Emma, focus on your child," he urged, his voice threaded with calm. The team continued their work, but the energy had shifted. All eyes were on this new father figure standing at the threshold of her life. "Why are you here?" Emma's voice trembled, both fear and defiance coursing through her veins. She had fought so hard to cast off the chains of the past, yet they clung to her now like a ghost. The Mafia boss took a step into the room, his expression unreadable. "It's not just about you anymore, Emma. This affects all of us," he said, voice low and faster than she could have ever anticipated. The implications of his words wrapped around her throat like a vice. A myriad of emotions flared in her chest: betrayal, anger, and an unmistakable desire to break free from the grip of the past. "I won't allow you to dictate how I raise my child," she shot back, emboldened by the very essence of her new reality. The words filled her with a momentary strength, but reality crashed down as she remembered the kind of man he was. The fight that had fueled her in labor now ignited a different kind of rage, intertwined with her need to protect what she had just brought into the world. The medical staff exchanged glances, waiting for their lead. It was almost comical in its absurdity, the juxtaposition of life and death, love and menace right in front of her. "Emma, think carefully," he said softly, an unexpected gentleness edged in his otherwise imposing demeanor. "This isn't just about you making decisions in isolation." In that moment, Emma reevaluated everything. She had always thought of herself as a lone warrior, but perhaps this was a paradigm shift, a chance to engage in the intricate dance of life she had always avoided. Yet, trusting him felt like a step back into the quagmire. "What do you want?" she demanded, the words tumbling from her lips. Those 3 words held her future. She needed clarity as she stood at this unforeseen crossroads. "I want to ensure you and the child are safe. That's it," he replied, his eyes betraying a glimmer of sincerity mixed with an unsettling complexity. "Let me help you."
Emma weighed the offer, scanning Paul's face for solace. His familiar strength beckoned her back, a reminder of all they'd fought for together in their past. Yet the shadows were lengthening, asserting their presence. Was safety even an option, or would it simply lead to another kind of bondage? Emma's internal compass spun wildly, and she felt lost. She craved independence, but knew that entering a partnership, of any kind, with someone so entwined in her past could mean disaster. With her newborn cradled against her, she had unwittingly become a tether between her old life and the future she was terrified to embrace.
She grappled with a staggering realization. The choices before her could not only reshape her destiny, but also define her child's. Tension washed over her as she held her baby tight. Who would she trust to stand by her side? Emma had emerged from the crucible of her past, but was she prepared to navigate the uncharted waters ahead? Just then, as if sensing her turmoil, the baby began to wail, pulling Emma from her thoughts. A resurgent wave of protective instinct surged through her. I need to know who I can rely on, she thought fiercely, her resolve hardening. With a glance at both Paul and the Mafia boss, she prepared to carve a path for them all to follow, ready to reclaim her narrative one more time. The crossroads of her life had never been clearer. She needed to confront the shifting allegiances surrounding her. But fear settled heavily as she realized the conundrum of the new ties she was about to weave. The breath-catching choice before her loomed large, and she understood that the next steps would begin to reveal the truth behind the Mafia boss's intentions. As she braced for the confrontation, ready to extract promises from the past and secure the future for her child, a final thought echoed in her mind. What if this was only the beginning of her battle? Emma inhaled deeply, prepared to face whatever storm might come. Emma instinctively tightened her grip around her newborn. The innocent weight in her arms served as a stark reminder of the life she was now responsible for, one that had begun in a world filled with darkness and danger. The Mafia boss's looming presence not only threatened her peace, but also shattered the fragile safety net she had just begun to weave for her child. Take a step back, she commanded, her voice louder now, spurred by desperation. Every instinct cried for her to push him away, yet curiosity nagged at her. What kind of help could he truly offer, and at what cost? The Mafia boss raised an eyebrow, a crooked smile surfacing. You misunderstand my intentions, Emma. I'm not here to control you. I want to protect what you've created. The absurdity of his statement swirled within her. She had emerged from her previous life trying to sever ties, not create new ones bathed in Mafia protection. The duality of his offer clashed violently against her deepest fears. Her instinctive desire to reject him battled against the cold reality of her situation. She was vulnerable, and her child was at risk. Is your idea of protection built on bonds or shackles? She spat, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. A silence lingered. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled the room as it became a battleground of conflicting motives. She darted a glance at Paul. His expression mirrored her turmoil. Who would he ally with if she led him toward this uncharted territory? Emma, Paul interjected softly, this is something you need to decide for yourself.
His voice carried warmth, yet it signaled a chasm opening between their combined past. She felt like a marionette, pulled in two opposing directions, each string attached to her future. Do you think I can just trust him? She asked, taking a step toward Paul, instinctually seeking solidarity. Trust must be earned, not given freely, Paul replied, his voice steady. But you also need to weigh your options. Keeping this child safe might mean playing a dangerous game. Emma recoiled from the implications of his statement. She had fought so hard to escape that game. The words echoed in her mind, igniting an internal conflict. Could she leverage her past to protect her future? Help me understand why I should consider your offer, she challenged the Mafia boss, a flicker of hope igniting. Because you'll need more than sheer will to carve out a life for your child. My world has resources that, while tainted, can provide security when no one else can. She observed his eyes searching hers, revealing not only a desire for connection, but perhaps deeper grudges yet to be aired. A realization washed over her. This was less a negotiation than a way to expose her vulnerabilities. As resolve flooded her, she aimed to regain control. If I consider your help, you must agree to my terms, non-negotiable. His smirk faded momentarily. I'm intrigued. Go on, he prodded, leaning forward, interest piqued. Emma felt a surge of empowerment coursing through her as she began to articulate her conditions. I need resources for medical care that is not tied to you. I will forge my own path, and I expect complete autonomy. She spoke with greater confidence now, every word positioning her authority. The Mafia boss assessed her, welcoming the challenge. Understood, he conceded thoughtfully, but know this, I don't work in diminished roles. If I protect you, I get to decide when the help is warranted. Emma's heart raced at the weight of his words. Then I don't need your help, she snapped, defiance blooming. Your bravado is admirable but overly naive. Don't dismiss my offer. The stakes have never been higher. Tension thickened in the room as she battled the storm of conflicting emotions within. Their deal was becoming a power struggle, a test of wills that echoed a past she thought she had left behind. Paul stepped forward, seeking to mediate. You can't ignore reality, Emma. This is about a child now. Statements of independence might jeopardize their protection. The implications swirled around her like smoke, each word a reminder of the terrifying land she now navigated, a space where choices reverberated not only in her life, but her child's as well. A decision etched itself into the core of her being, but she felt that it was intertwined with more than just survival. It was a confrontation, a fight against the shadows of her past, while safeguarding the light of her future.
As Emma prepared to respond, her mind raced with thoughts of her own hidden strengths. Could she leverage her newfound maternal fierceness against the shadows that called for her to re-enter an old life? That inner resolve thickened her skin. She was ready to face this challenge, but what would it demand from her? Then show me what true protection looks like, she demanded, fierceness in her voice, preparing to set an uncertain course. In that moment, she knew the real fight was just beginning. Her answer would not only affect her future, but would also unravel a deeper complication waiting to surface in the impending storm. Emma inhaled sharply, standing at the helm of her choices. Her next move would draw a line between fidelity and freedom, illuminating the truth that lay behind the mask he wore. Yet as she confronted this coercive landscape, a chilling thought flitted through her mind. What lies don't just linger, they fester. Emma's heart raced as the silence stretched between them, the weight of the decision pressing down with daunting intensity. She felt the pulse of her motherly instincts, pounding an urgent rhythm through her veins. At that moment, everything seemed to hinge on her response. Both the safety of her child and her autonomy were delicately poised on the thin edge of her next words. The Mafia boss watched her intensely, his expression shifting from amusement to something more challenging. I appreciate your spirit, Emma, but bending the rules, your rules, will be necessary if you're to play this game. His tone left no room for doubt. He was proposing a chess match, the stakes irrecoverably high. Each move would echo deeper than the previous one, shaping their destinies and intertwining their lives in a way she couldn't yet comprehend. What game are we playing? She questioned, gathering her thoughts as she processed the implications of his statement. If I accept your terms, what's to stop you from playing both sides? Emma felt her resolve hardened. She had already carved a path defined by her past scars. The idea of returning to the oppressive shadow of her previous life was repulsive, yet the fear of inadequacy clung to her. She was scared of stepping back into a world governed by power struggles and threats, yet her child's safety had to come first. Emma, Paul interjected, his voice low and calming. This is the reality we are facing. If you want a fighting chance, tapping into every resource, even the ones that come with echoes from the past, might be necessary. We can't overlook that. She wanted to lash out, to deny their terrifying reality, but in the quiet corners of her mind, she recognized a burgeoning truth. Her independence had always been her armor, and now it could also be her downfall. Fine, she responded, her voice tremulous but steady. I'll consider your offer, but I will need more assurance than an empty promise. I need a guarantee for my safety and my child's. The Mafia boss's brow furrowed, intrigued. And if I refuse? She squared her shoulders, feeling the stirrings of a warrior in her. Then you risk losing more than I do. This power play doesn't just apply to you. A flicker of a smile danced on his lips, revealing a mixture of respect and challenge. Bravado suits you, but let's be realistic. Power is the currency in my world. If you refuse my offer, it's not just walking away. It's a gamble with calamity. As the gravity of their exchange settled into her bones, a realization crystallized within Emma. She was standing at a crossroads not just in her life, but in her identity. Decisions she thought were resolute would now require recalibration, blending her fierce resolve with calculated risk. "Consider your options carefully," he warned. "I don't just deal in resources, I deal in connections. Isolation is a luxury you can no longer afford." Emma felt a pang of vulnerability. She had pridefully kept her distance from her past acquaintances, convinced she could brave this on her own. Yet now she felt the echoes of old ties beginning to tighten around her like a noose. "Connections how?" she pressed, intent on exposing his agenda before fully agreeing to anything. "Essentially, I'll unlock a network of support. But trust me, it comes with its own demands," he replied, his tone no longer playful but flat, revealing his true power dynamic. Her mind raced. Was this really the path she wanted? To dance with men like him? To intertwine her life and her child with the fabric of danger? "What's your end game?" Emma challenged, refusing to back down. He leaned closer, the intrigue in his eyes matched only by a hint of unease. "You're tenacious, a trait I admire. But understand this, everything I do is to protect my interests." At that moment, clarity hit her like a fist. The game was already set, and she was both the pawn and the player. Could she redefine the rules? "Then I'll be playing my game," she affirmed, fighting to balance her fright with purpose. "I'll need to know my limits, and I'll never lose sight of my independence. If this is going to work, it has to be on my terms." The tension in the air crackled. She could feel the challenge igniting between them, as if they were both considering the risk of colluding in a game that could consume them whole. As he regarded her closely, she noticed the subtle shifts in his expression. He was assessing her with renewed interest, perhaps even respect. But despite the potential for alliance, a singular question pulsated in her mind. Would she be compromising her very essence to secure her child? With every heartbeat, the clouds of doubt loomed larger. Then, cutting through the uncertainty, she sensed an impending eruption within her. Figures from her past, old allies and hidden enemies, danced at the edges of her thoughts. Suddenly, she realized a hidden resource lay deep within her reach, a connection no one could predict.
But with each decision came repercussions she could not foresee. The next move had to count, for in her brave quest to regain autonomy, she was on the precipice of uncovering a dark truth that could threaten everything she held dear. "Let's see just how far you're willing to go," she said, the words leaving her lips with ironclad conviction, eyes locked onto his. As they stood there, the undercurrents of their unresolved tension thickening the air, Emma felt a more profound storm brewing on the horizon, one she wasn't yet prepared for. Was she truly ready to face the demons that had once ruled her life, armed only with newfound determination and an innocent child depending on her? With a tumult of possibilities swirling in her mind, one chilling thought settled in like an unwelcome guest. Her past might not be as disconnected as she had believed. Unraveling the threads could expose more than she was prepared to confront. Emma left the lair of decisions with an unsettling blend of anxiety and resolve swirling within her. Each step she took seemed weighted by unseen chains, remnants of past choices that still echoed in her heart. The gravitas of her commitment settled in as she pushed through the revolving doors of the opulent building, the blaring lights rupturing her thoughts like thunder. Outside, the chaotic city life engulfed her. The energy of the streets felt both invigorating and suffocating. She had stepped into a world where survival hinged on alliances and threats loomed around every corner. A cold wind swept through her, amplifying her fears as she pulled her coat tighter around her body. Would her child truly be safe in this new territory? The question gnawed at her. Determined to quell the storm inside, Emma sought refuge in her favorite diner. It was a small establishment, a relic of simpler times, and offered a comforting familiarity amidst the chaos. As she settled into a booth, she scanned the menu, though her thoughts were elsewhere. "Black coffee?" A voice jolted her back to the present. It was Clara, the waitress who had known Emma since her days of struggling in the city. "Yes, please, no sugar," Emma replied, forcing a smile, though it felt heavy on her lips. Clara glanced at her, concern etched on her face. "You okay? You seem different." "Just making some choices." Emma's mind raced. Would she confide in Clara, risk exposing herself to another potential connection in this precarious world? But the moment passed, and she decided against it. She couldn't afford to show any cracks. Instead, she leaned back in her seat, forcing herself to breathe deeply, inhaling the aroma of brewed coffee that enveloped her like a blanket.
This moment of tranquility was precisely what she needed, a fleeting escape from the weighty decisions. With each sip, clarity surged through her. She took out her phone, the screen illuminating brittle reflections of old contacts.
There they were, names from her past, friends who had traveled similar paths, each one holding potential value in her current dilemma. The temptation to reach out flickered like a flame rekindled in the dark depths of her memory. Could she consider them resources? Allies? Or were they just reminders of a life she had hesitated to discard? She hesitated over the screen, uncertainty creeping back in. But survival demanded adaptation. Perhaps she could reshape those relationships to serve her purpose. She would reclaim her narrative instead of allowing it to be co-opted by others. As the thoughts cascaded, Emma's instincts kicked in, revealing a reservoir of determination. She made a decision. She would reconstruct her network, utilize her past to empower her future. She wasn't starting over. She was building a new foundation, reinforced by what she had once tried to forget. But the real challenge lay ahead. Would her past acquaintances still be willing to engage with her? Had the years changed the dynamics beyond repair? Navigating those relationships would require finesse and strategy, two things she was determined to master. "Here's your coffee," Clara said, breaking Emma's concentration. The warmth of the cup against her hands drew her back momentarily. "Thanks, Clara. You have no idea how much this means right now," she replied, her fingers tightening around the mug. "Just take care of yourself, okay? I'll be around." Clara's words lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken understanding. After she finished her coffee, Emma felt a sense of purpose rekindled within her. She would reach out to her past connections tonight. But first, she had to confront the darkness lurking in the corners of her mind, the shadows that whispered caution, reminding her of the risks involved in welcoming old allies back into her life. Leaving the diner, Emma's pulse quickened as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that melted into the deepening twilight. She was entering a phase of her life laced with uncertainty, the stakes high and the stakes personal. A chill ran down her spine. She recalled the Mafia boss's warning. She stopped, suddenly aware that the most significant battles were fought internally. Each connection she reestablished could either fortify her resolve or lead her down an unpredictable path of treachery. Would her efforts blend seamlessly into the dangerous game she was now part of, or would they unravel her harder-than-steel resolve? With a determined glance back toward the diner, she took a step forward into the unknown. The past beckoned enticingly, but Emma would not be overwhelmed by it. She had to navigate this labyrinth with both care and confidence. Every decision would bear consequences. As she made her first call, her heart raced, not from fear but from the exhilarating taste of power reclaiming its place in her grasp. "Hello, Sarah," she said when the dial tone settled.
"I need your help." But as the words left her mouth, she realized she might be opening a door she couldn't control. Who would emerge on the other side, and at what cost? The thrill of the unknown surged. It was time to confront not just her past, but the burgeoning shadows of what lay ahead. Every connection opened could shift the balance in ways even she couldn't foresee. The game had begun, but the rules were only just starting to unfold. Emma steeled herself as she plunged deeper, wondering how far she would need to go to carve out peace for her and her child. The true conflict hadn't yet revealed itself, and she felt it thrumming in the air, waiting to unravel. The phone rang, cutting through the electric tension in Emma's chest. Each chime felt like a countdown, amplifying her sense of urgency and dread. What if Sarah was no longer the ally she remembered? Emma's fingers trembled, poised above the screen, but the call was already in motion. "Emma, is that you?" Sarah's voice sounded familiar yet alien, laced with years of separation. "Yes, it's me." Uncertainty clung to her words. I need your help." "Help? That's new. I thought you were done with all of this." Emma bristled at the judgment lacing Sarah's tone. It pierced through her carefully constructed confidence. "I need to know what you're up to these days. I'm facing something big." Silence fell on the line, heavy and unsettling. Every second stretched into a chasm filled with potential rejection. It was the prerequisite discomfort of vulnerability, a reminder of how much she had invested in her decision to reconnect. "They're asking for more than I can give, Sarah. I could use a reliable connection." "Who is they? What's going on, Emma?" The gravity in Sarah's voice shifted subtly. Was it concern? Or was this merely the old dynamic reawakening? "Let's meet," Emma suggested, surprising herself with the assertiveness. "Can you do that? Tonight?" A pause, and then, "Fine.
There's a bar downtown, the Moth, 8 o'clock. Emma hung up, the warmth of her coffee replaced with a surge of anxiety. The Moth, a place buried in her memories, late nights and laughter mingled with unspoken promises of protection, memories she had almost exorcised from her mind. Still, the attraction to that past grew stronger. She needed to confront decisions made, ghosts of friendships long since faded. Emma glanced at her reflection in a window as she walked, the wind tussling her hair. She looked different, braver, but the internal struggle flickered behind her eyes. By the time she reached the Moth, Emma's heart danced in her chest, a war drum thrumming its fierce rhythm. The blurred lights cast a warm glow, morphing into a cocoon, sheltering her from the world outside. The door creaked as she stepped in, sending ripples through both the atmosphere and her composure. Sarah sat in a dark corner, swirling her drink, a familiar glint of doubt mixed with curiosity in her gaze.
Emma slid into the seat opposite her, attempting to project confidence, though she felt like a paper boat on turbulent waters. "Years, and you just call like it's—" Sarah started. "I'm in trouble," Emma interrupted, harnessing every ounce of urgency in her voice. "The Mafia?" Sarah leaned in closer, abandoning her drink for the moment, eyes narrowing. "What did you get yourself into?" Emma hesitated for just a beat. Did she really want to expose the full truth? "I have a child who's now in the crosshairs of dangerous people. I can't trust just anyone. You know that." Shock flickered across Sarah's face before she masked it with a forced calm. "Why should I trust you? You left, Emma. You ran." Surprisingly, the accusation didn't send her spiraling. Instead, it felt like a push, urging her to confront not just their past, but her own motives. "I didn't run. I transformed. I did it to build something better, and now I need you to help me protect that something." Moments passed in silence as a wave of understanding washed over them, an unspoken acknowledgement of their history. Sarah's defenses began chipping away. "You do realize that the Mafia isn't forgiving?" "I am aware," Emma replied, fierce determination hardening her resolve. "But I'm not looking to be forgiving. I'm looking for alliance." As the conversation unfolded, Emma felt her past colliding with her present, a drawing of lines she thought were erased. Every detail unfolded, revealing deeper layers of her emotions and their professional dynamics. "You know I have my own darkness. It won't be so easy as you think," Sarah warned. "I don't need easy," Emma shot back, her voice steady. "I need someone who knows the terrain, and I believe that's you." In that moment, both women recognized the weight of the decisions they were making and what these connections could entail. Emma was no longer just an isolated player. She was assembling a roster, potentially igniting an internal war against her fears. The stakes were rising. Before her, the blurred line dividing risk from necessity was beginning to sharpen. The conversation shifted, spiraling into strategies and past intel, plunging Emma deeper into her newfound role as a strategist. And then, the piece of information that left her reeling. There are others who would want to help you, those you thought long gone or untrustworthy. But Emma, once this starts, there's no backing down. Could she face the risk of confronting figures from her past, people weighed down by the echoes of betrayal? Each name that surfaced bore an aura of tension, a reminder that every relationship rekindled had the potential to ignite old wounds. With a firm grasp on her own resolve, she responded, "Then let's not look back. Let's aim to shift the power dynamics, clear the playing field of any unfinished business. I'll do whatever it takes." In that dimly lit bar, alliances began to reformulate, and her journey toward reclaiming control crystallized.
But as Emma stood on the precipice of this dangerous alliance, one critical thought echoed through her mind. Was she now forging paths into a labyrinth with no exit? In the throes of adrenaline-fueled ambition, Emma realized that the true test had merely begun. Those she had left behind could well emerge as both allies and adversaries, and the game was shaping up to be more complex than she had anticipated. As she and Sarah plotted a course through the chaos, the shadows began to whisper once more, beckoning forth figures she might never have expected to see again. And the question hung in the air: who else would find their way back into her turbulent life, and would they mark her triumph or her demise? Emma stood on the edge of a precipice, watching the turbulent waves of her past crash against the rocks of her future. The dim, familiar light of the Moth enveloped her like a warm embrace, but the chill of uncertainty still gripped her heart. She was no longer merely trying to escape from her family's legacy. She was ready to confront it head-on. In the wake of her conversation with Sarah, determination coursed through Emma's veins as she solidified her intentions.
She had recognized that her past connections, while fraught with danger, also possessed the potential to become powerful allies. The dawning realization was a testament to her growth. Emma had morphed from a scared girl running away into a fierce woman ready to fight for her child's future, a future untangled from the web of crime and fear. "Let's lay the groundwork, Emma. You need to know what you're walking into," Sarah stated, her tone shifting from skepticism to solidarity. They huddled closer, their former camaraderie returning with every exchanged word. With each plan they detailed, Emma felt the weight of her independence solidify. She no longer feared the ghosts of her past. Instead, she welcomed the challenge, poised to prove that she could shape her own path. Instead of seeing her connections as potential threats, she learned to view them as instruments to reclaim her narrative. From that moment, Emma unleashed the full force of her ambition. She began to compile information, contacts that could provide support and insight into both the legal system and the underbelly of the town. The protective network she once thought inaccessible began to take shape, and she knew every new ally would amplify her strength. Yet, as the plans began to solidify, her thoughts wandered once more to the Mafia boss, the man who had stood at the threshold of her newly forged resolve during her labor. He was still a shadow looming over her life, and she could not ignore that reality. "Are you still going to confront him?" Sarah asked, breaking through Emma's ruminating thoughts. "Yes," Emma replied, her voice a steel bolt of certainty. "I need to show him that I am no longer a pawn in his game." With a renewed sense of purpose, she decided to seek out the Mafia boss.
To confront him would be the ultimate assertion of her independence, not just a fight for herself, but for her child's future. Every step toward him would affirm that she would no longer thrive under the shadows of her lineage. After days of strategizing, Emma organized a meeting. It took grit to sit in front of him again, a figure who had once seemed omnipotent, yet she now carried a wealth of knowledge and connections that he could never possess. "You made sure I wouldn't just run again," Emma declared, as she met his gaze, unyielding. "But understand this, I'm not afraid anymore. This child will not bear the weight of your legacy." His expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and respect crossing his face, perhaps realizing that his grip on her was slowly faltering. In that moment, the past they shared no longer defined her. It granted her clarity and strength. "Emma, you don't understand the world you're stepping into," he countered, a flicker of concern in his otherwise confident demeanor. "On the contrary, I understand it all too well. This is my life now, and I will dictate my terms," she asserted. Each word dripped with resolve. As the tension mounted, she detailed the outlines of her plans, her newfound alliances, the safety measures she would take, and her unwavering commitment to ensure her child would never be bound by their history. With each declaration, she felt the chains of her past fall away, confirming her newfound autonomy. Recognition crossed his face, indicating he finally understood the force of her transformation. "You've done remarkably well, Emma." "Don't mistake this for submission," she replied sharply, a flicker of defiance igniting within her. "I won't return to the life you represent." The encounter left Emma invigorated. She had rewritten her story. No longer was she a character trapped in the pages of someone else's narrative. By confronting her fears and standing tall against the Mafia boss, she forged a path toward her own empowerment. In the following months, Emma focused on practical growth, diversifying her skill set as she completed her degree in social work. The knowledge she gained in school became her armor as she navigated uncharted territory. Her relationship with Sarah flourished, transforming into a partnership forged in mutual respect and loyalty. With each triumphant moment, graduation day, the first steps of her child, and the establishment of a support network, Emma's confidence solidified. She had proved to herself and those around her that she could rise above the murky waters of her lineage and create a legacy founded on resilience, courage, and unconditional love. They would not succumb to the shadows that had hounded them. Instead, they would build fortresses of strength together. Finally, as every corner of her life fell into alignment, Emma experienced the profound satisfaction of knowing she had crafted her own destiny.
The day came when her child looked up at her, eyes wide, filled with trust and untainted dreams. In that fleeting moment, Emma had realized her greatest achievement. She could love fiercely while also building a future unmarred by the stains of her past. As they walked towards a new horizon, Emma felt the warmth of pride enveloping her. She had conquered her fears and emerged triumphant, embodying a promise not just for her child, but for herself, a promise that echoed loud and clear. The darkness would no longer reign.
Emma smiled, free and confident, as she stepped forward into a life rich with possibility, and she felt an urge to share her journey. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that unfold in ways you never thought possible. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your support makes a difference in amplifying stories of triumph. Comment your reactions and theories about how Emma transformed her destiny. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. After all, true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second.